She said, we're so busy these days that if instead of watching our thoughts, we just allow them to go by, then they don't impact us, which is absolutely true. And when we meditate, that's exactly what we do. When I lead meditations, that's a metaphor that I use very frequently is, your thoughts are just like clouds that are blowing across a blue sky on a windy day, and don't pay attention to them. And yet, what I would say in terms of a lifestyle, as a meditation practice, yes, absolutely, that is perfect. We don't want to be introspecting during, or in the style of meditation that I practice, for example. I don't want to be introspecting while I'm meditating. I don't want to be analyzing the thought or dissecting the thought. I want to just allow it to blow across my consciousness, and I want to be keeping the awareness on the space between the thoughts. But in the rest of my life, I have a very deep commitment to personal truth and insight and awareness of myself. Both my capital S self, which is that which is soul, spirit, consciousness, love, borderless, boundaryless, never born, never died, that, as well as the vehicle that myself is living in this body, which is my unique environment, my unique sanskaras, my unique neural networks and neural patterns. So, for example, the things that make me angry are going to be very different than the things that make you angry or her angry or him angry. And what I have found on a personal level is that if I don't have an understanding of what my triggers are, if I don't have an understanding of my personal psyche, what its patterns look like, it's very, very easy to act unconsciously. There's a term that is used. He didn't invent it. I used to think he invented it, but it turns out he didn't invent it. But he's the one I heard it and learned it from, a meditation teacher in America named Jack Kornfield, who's a very, very famous Buddhist meditation teacher. And he speaks about something called a spiritual bypass. And the spiritual bypass is the idea that because I've had a very real and very true spiritual experience of oneness, of bliss, of divine intoxication, of all of that, whether it lasted a moment or whether it lasted years, that somehow I'm done with any and all of my own psychological processes. And he teaches on this a lot because he had been a monk in a Buddhist monastery in the forests for many years and then came back and is now teaching in the West. And he spoke about how when he left the monastery and came back to America, how so many of his own issues that he hadn't experienced when he was meditating and he hadn't experienced when he was living this life of a monk in the monastery in the forest, that suddenly here they were back again in his face, and that all those years of meditation, while had given him incredible bliss, incredible peace, incredible divine experiences, hadn't actually changed the patterns in which he was living. And so he found it just as difficult to be with his parents. He found it just as difficult to have relationships. And that what he wanted to do was just run out of that and go meditate again. But what he realized was, well, wait, that's not actually the highest experience of life. My meditation shouldn't be something that takes me out of life. It should be something that I'm able to bring into life. So in any case, that's a long way of saying that that's a philosophy that for me personally rings very, very true. And I know that in my life personally, while I've had extraordinary spiritual experiences, extraordinary experiences of oneness with the divine, that are, by God's grace, more and more frequent every year, that stay longer and longer. I also know that I'm not free of anger. I know that I get frustrated sometimes. I know that I'm not free of stress. I know that I don't live 24 hours a day, 365 days a year in full awareness that I'm soul, not body. That there are moments where I'm attached to an outcome, whether it's a plane that I want to catch, whether it's something that I want to have finished by a certain deadline. Whatever it may be, I'm aware of that. And the psychological introspection work of, that was really interesting today. Why did I get so upset in that meeting? What was it that happened? God, it's been months since I've been that upset. What was it? That process of forcing myself, even if I didn't act on it, even if no one in the meeting even knew I was upset. Because over the years, you stop acting. You do develop the ability to have enough control on the emotions that you don't act from them all the time. But my ultimate goal is not just a matter of not acting on them, but I don't want to feel anger. I don't want to ever feel separation. I don't want to ever feel stress. And so every time I do, for me, is an opportunity, either in that moment or later that day or that night, to stop and to say, wow, that was really interesting. What was it that triggered me so much? And that's how we learn about ourselves. And again, the path of psychoanalysis is a path that absolutely can run you in a, like on a treadmill for the rest of your life, and you keep running and you don't necessarily get anywhere. So I'm not advising this as a 24-hour-a-day practice. As a meditation, allow the thoughts to go. As a meditation in life, as you're moving, if they're not ones that feel particularly important, absolutely, let them go. This is why I chant my mantra all the time. This is why I stay connected to my breath all the time. These are absolutely the practices, whether it's the mantra, whether it's the breath, that bring us out of the thoughts, out of the thinking mind, into the heart, into consciousness. And I have a commitment to being as free as I can be of my own psychological conditioning. And I have found the only way to be free of it is to know what it is I'm trying to be free of. If I can't see it, and I can't name it, it's very difficult for me to be free of it. And so I have found that there is really a value at certain times, in certain circumstances, that really sting. The stuff that really seems to trigger you into moments or behaviors or reactions, that's the stuff that keeps you from living in the light that you want to live in. Not because you're pushing things away. See, I don't want to live in the light because I'm pushing away darkness. I don't want to live in peace because I'm pushing away things that aren't peaceful. Because that feels very, it feels very tiring, actually. To have to spend your life sort of pushing away things that might intrude upon your peace and your light. I want to be able to sit in a peace, in a light, in a stillness that's not requiring me to push things away. And in order for that to happen, I need to also make space in my life to look at what are those things that intrude on my peace.